Hi, Luis.
Hello, Shanti. We'll see how many people show up today.
Yeah. I think people are in festival mode.
Yeah, I
I'll just send a reminder. Let's see.
All
Yes.
right, we can start now. I think we have, yeah, I think this is start to see who else can join. So, Shaila, Nega, Naga, you have your free forum tonight just to ask any questions you like and do a deeper dive for sure.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm not sure if you guys seen the news. Claude Sonnet 4.5 came out, and Claude Sonnet 4.5 benchmarks are really great. Um, Especially around coding. And this is where definitely the biggest improvements are happening. So let's see if I can find some of you the benchmarks. But let's see here. I'll share my screen for this one. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah, so it came out 3 days ago, especially if you ever do vibe coding, that's what they say. I'll talk about that in sort of the next classes. And you wanted to really build things. Cloud Sonnet 4.5 came out, and it's sort of the new base. So why is this really important? It's because currently most people are coding with models that are smaller, coding with models that are like, okay, I'll pay $20, but for me to actually get a real value from this, I'm gonna have to I have to pay the $200 pro value for Claude. I'm gonna have to spend the $200 on GPT-5 Pro version. So Claude Sonnet had Sonnet 4 and 3.7. And 4, in terms of benchmark, was like a 30% in terms of reasoning. And the difference between now, when Cloud Sonnet 4 and Cloud Sonnet 4.5 is this was 30%. Now I think the reasoning on this is like 87%. We'll go through the different marks. And this is now becoming their base model. So if Cloud Opus 4.1 was supposed to be the smarter model of Cloud Sonnet 4, like supposed to be more reasoning, higher level, they just upped the bar a lot by moving to even past their most smartest model. So that means that the new Opus that's going to be coming out, maybe Opus 4.5, that's going to be like 86 or 87% in terms of engineering. And this is all within 4 months. So to me is really, really great, especially around software engineering for those who are trying to build things. Um,
Sorry,
it's really cool.
Lewis, what does that 77% really mean there?
Yeah, so all of these are based off global benchmarks. So you would think that you're like, okay, so what's accuracy? So what they would do is they would grab software exams of how to produce code, how to produce tests, and have over 300 different types of variations of them, and then do the model against these variations and see how well the accuracy results here.
I
So
see.
on here as well, you can see that, for example, agentic coding, a software engineering benchmark verified, terminal bench, T2 benches, Oswald, all of these are separate exams that everyone is doing against their models to see how well it's doing. So example, comparing the 4 to the 5 in terms of agentic coding, there is a big boost of increase as well in terms of 4 to the 4.5. The agentic terminal, an example, like doing agentic terminal is how you would produce, you would have a model that understands and reasons which tool to use. To go from a 36% out of 100, which is really low, to a 50% is huge. And no other model right now, even the most smartest 4.1, has reached that agentic size in terms of doing agentic tool decisions. Agentic tool use as well. They're sort of top of the bar in terms of having a base model, telecom, airline, retail, computer use. They haven't benchmarked around GP5 Gemini 5 Pro. So this one means how well can it take over your PC and do things. So I'm not sure if you guys have ever used the MCP tools in Claude, but let's see here. If I click new chat, I think I have something in here. So then I click here and I can go to control your Mac. And then you have something called OssaScript. So OssaScript is how you can run terminals. And I can say, open up on my terminal and look for my documents. So then it's going to give access to my PC terminal, look into my documents and run that. So when I say computer use in World, I can tell Claude Sonnet, hey, at 9 p.m., I want you to go to my computer, open this file, run this, blah, 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 and open up this folder, open up this section, and it'll know exactly where my things are. And like in terms of real Mac commands to be used. So jumping up from 42 to 46 to 1% is huge in the sense that we're close to having these agents be able to go on your PC and actually click open and actually do real life loops. High school competition, to me, this is huge as well. GPT-5 did really good in terms of high school competition math Python exams, 99.6, but Claude Sonnet killed it with 100%. So they are doing really good. Except you can see here that GPT-5 seems to be a little bit stronger using these tools versus non-tools. And also, in terms of graduate level reasoning, means PhD level thinking. It may not be as smart as the other ones, but seems like Gemini 2.5 Pro scored a little bit smarter on PhD level thinking than GPT-5. It's still not that best, but again, you can consult these other LLMs. Example, if you have a question and something that's really, really hard, you can then ask Cloud Sonnet 4.5, what's your take? Ask GPT-5, what's your take? Ask Gemini 2.5 Pro, what's your take? And then go to the highest reasoning one, which we see here, the benchmark, the Gemini 2.5 Pro, and say, okay, these are our three different takes, critique them and sort of merge which ones are the best ideas. So then you can then bump that 86.4 to over 90 because each one will take its own perspective, its own view, and then really get down that reasoning. So again, I'm really impressed with this new Cloud Sonnet 4.5. I read the Reddit forums and boards, and everyone's saying that it's solving issues that 4.1 or Sonnet 4 or GPT-5 couldn't solve. So to me, it's really impressive in terms of that way. So in finance, it's really going really well. Law as well, medicine and STEM in terms of all the different models inside the Claude section.
So
So
technically, you can use the agentic UI, or you can use the Cloud Code also to connect to Sonnet 4.5 and then
yeah.
generate the code. Is that
Yep.
correct?
So even the Claude desktop that we downloaded last week, you should have 4.5 in there already. It should be upgraded, and you can even see here Claude Sonnet 4.5.
Got it.
ask questions on there as well. If you want to build now using Claude Code, you need to pay for the subscription. Like you need to pay for the $20 Pro version, and which gives you the ability to start coding inside your VS Code or Cursor or whatever IDE you want to use.
Got it.
So again, that's something cool I found for this week. Again, really these things are moving really fast, and again, what's going to happen is OpenAI sees this, they're going to be alarmed. Google's saying, well, how can Cloud Sonnet 4.5? And guess what they're going to do? They're going to start learning from each other. Okay, let's start distilling information from Sonnet 4.5. So remember week one, I talked about how you can create teacher and student models where you ask questions and then it'll come out with the answers in order to get it smart. I'm sure that GPT-5 and Gemini are going to start trying to do distilling, which is pulling information from 4.5 in order to make their models better. So in the sense that it sucks for each one trying to steal information, trying to do things with another, but again, who benefits this? All us. We get to get smarter models, and it put without competition, we would still be at GPT-4 right now, and having Sam Altman saying this is the most intelligent models we can have. But now, luckily, other companies have come out, as Google and Claude, Anthropic has come out and said, no, we'll push the boundaries on this. So it's really interesting in terms of that sense.
So, Ch ChatGPT getting better in mathematics, is it something they have done in the core level or they have used some tools or agents, Luis?
That's a very good question, and I'm not sure if you know, there's a bunch of these areas called data annotation. Um, see, these are individuals. I think this. I'll just do one I know. Outlier AI math. So I actually was approached from this company as well to do to help train models. And what they do is they ask people who have bachelor degrees or math in statistics or it is or a math professional to do math homework. So they give them really hard. So what happens is when I did this, you give you I want a prompt that is solvable, that has to have this constraint with these mathematics subjects, and then you need to be able to solve it using Python. So then you go and you create this mathematical equations, you walk through your reasoning, you justify why this is the right answer, but you're pretty much doing now human in the loop training on these models. So I'm like one of many, but as you can see here, in this company, they've gone, it's just like all over the world looking for individuals who are math experts to get verified. They look at their LinkedIn. They have to do a math test before even getting to start on this. They double check that you're not using any other LLMs to do something like this as well. And then you build out and you work for hours doing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of math examples. And if you're doing hundreds and hundreds of examples and they have over 1,000 people doing over 1,000 math examples, they're feeding they're feeding this training material into these models, whether it's Python or everything like that as well. And the second thing, how they're training these models as well is you guys all downloaded Claude Code. I'm sure you asked questions, but guess what? It was free. So if something's free, you are the product. Same thing with the Pro version. Even although you're paying licenses and you're asking and using it, you are the product. I'm not sure even if you saw in ChatGPT, if you ask a question sometimes in the UI, they'll give you two bars. Which response do you like better? And then you click the one you like. All that goes into these models training to becoming better, or anything you give a thumbs up, thumbs down, all the feedback, they use that to go back to the model training. So it's not about them extracting more information of being, oh, we didn't study about quantum mathematics, or we didn't study that. They already scraped everything from the web 2 years ago. Now it's about refining the data, cleaning the data, making it smarter in certain sections. Maybe there wasn't enough training on certain chemicals or certain mathematical cores, or we noticed that sometimes in the logic of doing software engineering, it didn't do this way. But now that we're teaching it more examples how to do it this way, it's getting better. So that's how these models are learning and becoming stronger in these ways.
Okay. Looks like you like math, Luis, and you're great. Nice.
Yeah, it's very important. You have to, it's more statistics and economics and something. That's one of my things, but
Okay, good. So, when you said like, when the ChatGPT, when you ask something, it gives you two formats. Which one do you like? Which one do you prefer, right? And
Mhm.
sometimes both looks almost similar. It's hard to say what's the difference. And you are obligated to pick one. So, yeah, how do we go about it? Like,
Yeah, so the only thing about this is that you don't know this, but it's actually two different AI models. So it could be GPT-5 Mini and it
mhm.
could be GPT-5 normal. And this is why they look almost the same because GPT-5 Mini is a reasoning model as well. Um, so they present you two different model responses and you don't know. So then again, it just comes down to preference and really it's really subjective. Like again, sometimes I know what you're talking about. It's maybe a word difference or just because like a certain paragraph is different. Again, they just want to know what's your preference. Like from these two different models, did you actually like the way this was styled? So again, there's no real book for
Oh,
this.
okay, okay. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions, anything about the AI world? I know you guys were partying this today. Just I know it's really hard to transition back to AI, but
Our
anything about some of
partying is
the
done yesterday, Luis. So
Oh,
we
it was all
had,
done yesterday? Okay.
yeah, yesterday. Yeah. Yesterday is a big festival day for us. So, yeah.
I have some devs who are in India who are working on a project and they asked for all today off. So I don't know how hard they partied. So
Yeah, in India it is Thursday. Yeah, different locations it is
yeah.
Thursday kind of.
Right, right.
Yeah, Luis, I have a question. Like, do you have any articles or something for the next week topic about generating the data for validation, something like that to prepare, like to read upon, and MCP?
So what I'm going to be doing on this week is talking about how to do AI agent evaluations. I decided to change
Right.
this subject simply because there's a lot of those questions coming in class. I'm okay, maybe I will take some time to take some more time to go over that during class. So I'll be going over how to do AI, like how to do AI evaluations, how to do tracing, all that information as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll also be going over a custom solution you guys can use as well to test even RAG and how to properly evaluate RAGs as well. So I'll be giving all this information. So there won't be a lot of slides because I think the best way to learn how to properly evaluate a model is actually seeing it in code rather than saying, oh, you can use these metrics on a PowerPoint, right? That's cool. That's nice. You can see, you can evaluate these metrics, but how do you actually see it in practice? But I can give you a couple of reading information.
Yeah. So
Uh,
because like there might be some tools also like that we have to validate the responses, like the percentage of accuracy, number of tokens, or the uh, validation around that point. So just wanted to see what's the trend in the market before the class. So
yeah. So here's a good article. Let me share my screen. So right now, what's industry standard is I'll talk about that as well. Let me just grab this and then let me put this in the chat. So how you judge LLMs is basically you use other LLMs as well. You can do, it really depends on the test. If you're doing RAGs, you don't have to do straight LLM evaluations, but again, this is best practice. So right now, everyone, AWS, Databricks, Google, Microsoft, when they talk about evals, they're doing this work at the back end, and which costs a lot more for because you're using an API to judge. Like again, you're using more LLMs and you have to do the context. So this article I'm saying here is really really big. They give one example. Again, I'm not going to be using this one though. So this one used evidently an open source library for LML evaluations with over 25 million downloads, and it gives you the link to the GitHub. But again, talks a little bit more about what LM as a judge was, how you handle comparison, how you not use one simple metric. And it actually goes through different types of tones, hallucinations, question response, evaluated responses, how you can properly assess it, and why does it work. So again, I'll be going over all this on Saturday. So don't feel like you need to learn everything before Saturday, but if you want to get deeper into the topic before that day, this is a really good article. How to evaluate hallucinations, how do you evaluate that this context is relevant, quality, etc. So that's something you can throw in and learn a bit yourself.
Just a quick question. So how do we know that the second LLM, which is actually evaluating this LLM, is not doing a mistake though?
Yep. So I know, so I wrote an article about this, so I'll do my plug here. Let's see this one. I wrote this one a couple months ago. I'll put this in the chat. So this one is talking about, I'll walk you through this because we have time. So you'll get a little deeper than the people on Saturday, but I pretty much, for you to understand, I have to take a step back and say, in classic ML, we had metrics like accuracy and precision to tell us if we were on the right track or not. But now with LMs, it could be a mix of right, wrong, and everything in between. So how do you trust, how do you build the metrics for this, and how can you make things really helpful? And a majority of these things are talking about, well, in the software development life cycles, what we usually do is something called unit test, right? You would create a unit test and say 2 + 2 is equal to 4, right? And then you put that in your CDC pipeline. If your model is able to run on that, then you know it passes or fails. So you know it works. But if you try to apply that same logic of creating a unit test on an LLM, summarize my article, this is where you'll get a problem. So you'll see that the model will not do the same text every single time. It sometimes might do a better summary, sometimes it might be doing a more verbose summary, it might be a very brief summary. So there is no single correct output when an LLM gives something out. And again, talking about how LLMs are non-deterministic. So again, you can't say, I want you to say this way every single time. LLMs are not like that. Even if you put the temperature down to 0, it could control a lot in terms of variability, but it's still, it'll still be non-deterministic, and that's something LLMs will have down. And again, you can't put the number of you can't put the number of events an LM might do, right? So you can't mock the universe. So it's impossible. It's pretty much impossible to create a unit test that you know 100% the LM will say this word per word on this or not. So you have to move from doing a deterministic logic unit test to something you call probabilistic quality, which is a huge different shift from what you consider normal testing today to what LLMs are. So instead of asking like the LM model, did it produce the exact same response I'm looking for? You have to ask better questions about the LM, saying, was the answer actually relevant to what the user asked? Was the response was factually correct? That was what responded. Was it safe? Was the response coming in there actually have everything that we have and didn't say anything that's not supposed to be produced? And was the answer concise and easy to understand? So this is where you're shifting that question of I'm always going to see 4. No, you can't be judging that deterministic test on these LLMs. You have to swap it out for this probabilistic quality now, and really get deeper to that. So instead of doing that, this is where I said LM is a judge. So it's simple. You use another LLM to judge the output, and you judge it from that way, right? So instead of using binary fill and pass, you might provide the judge with the original prompt and then response from application, and then you say it looks good or blah blah. So then it goes back to Nagish's question. Wait, you're using an LLM to judge an LLM? So that's what it's very familiar. That's usually a question I'm getting. This is usually the first questions the developer asks. It sounds a bit like Inception, and the skepticism is valid. How can one LLM be unreliable, and why would you trust another one to grade its homework? So the difference is this. Generative task is hard. Asking an LLM to answer a complex question based on retrieved documents requires a broad, creative, and synthetic form of reasoning, and the number of possible correct answers is infinite. So how do we evaluate this easier way? Asking a judge LM to determine if a given answer is supported by given context is a much more constrained and analytical task. The judge isn't creating new knowledge, it's performing a focused comparison against a clear set of rules. So think of it like between writing a novel and proofreading a single page for grammatical errors. The latter is far more deterministic and reliable task for an LLM. So because we're telling an LLM, hey, does this response have anything that's it's not safe? Hey, does this response have this? So LLMs become more deterministic because you're giving them more of a simpler task and you're bringing it down rather than saying, hey, write me a novel and having it go off the rails because it's trying to be more creative. Because we're narrowing the scope down on that second LLM, you're coming out with more better responses. And again, it comes down to how well you develop your prompt when you judge these evaluations as well.
Actually, Luis, one question. So
Yeah.
then instead of asking second LLM, you can ask the same LLM to be itself critical about it and evaluate yourself.
Yeah, so I've tried that before, and I've used the same LLM that did the same responses, and it would say, okay, you achieved like 95% on your golden data set. You're like, oh, that's cool. But then I used a different model like Gemini or I used Claude to determine like, did you see anything wrong with it? And actually, if I was able to find sometimes other models looking at other model responses
Okay.
do find smaller things that the current model may be blind to.
Gotcha.
That
So-
makes sense because like the first model gave the answer what it
Actually-
answered based on some amount of
No,
things.
sometimes I found that if you ask it to be self-critical, it will do more processing. Like sometimes it will give superficial at the top level. Then if you ask it, okay, I want you to be sure, so then it would go deeper layers actually.
Yeah, so that works when you're sort of evaluating it like
Exactly,
in the same conversation. But usually what we do for this is we give a golden data set. So you already have the answers extracted out and the expected response extracted out, and we're just telling the LLM to go and review it. So this is where I'll go through a little bit more about this here, but this is what you usually see when you do something like that, right? So here's the user's question. What's the difference between reduce by and group by in Databricks Spark? So this was the retrieved context from the chunk that we got. This is what the model's response was. So the model now sees that this is sort of the golden truth that it needs to responded by. This is what how the model responded by. And then you sort of create your judge prompt notes. So you're a judge that evaluates if the model response is relevant to the user's prompt. Score 1 if relevant and 0 for irrelevant, and provide a brief reason and respond only in JSON. So again, we're looking at that in terms of relevance. Conciseness, you're a judge that evaluates if the model is concise and to the point. Score 1 if the answer is concise, 0 if it's overly verbose or contains unnecessary information. Groundness. So again, it's going to go now. So the model is going to read these three prompts and say, okay, relevance, conciseness, and groundness. It's going to create a JSON format that reads what the model response and the retrieved context and score it based off this information. So it's going to score, okay, I'm giving you a rating 1, reasoning the response directly answers the user's question about the 2 Spark functions. The response is direct, does not include irrelevant details, and all claims made by the response, such as mapsec combine and provide context. So again, what I'm trying to show is because you're giving strict prompts and you're telling it to score it from 0 to 1, or however you see it, or example, the rating that you want to give, it's going to give you more of a direct, concise response because now it actually has to give a score and a reason why you think this is it. So if, for example, you see conciseness like 0.2 and it's really low, you're like, why? And so the response is does not contain the following information. But you go back up and you read that, well, it does contain this. That means you need to go back to your conciseness, adjust your prompt, and say, oh, I must have messed up not giving it the right criteria of how to judge this. So this is where us creating these responses and reports, and this is why LLM as a judge is really important. And this is going to save you time. And again, this is the difference between you doing a handful of 10, 15, 20 manuals, like I won't need an LLM as a judge. I can do this myself. That's right. You could probably do 15, 20 yourself. But if you actually want to do a good analysis of your LLM model, you need to do this over 200, 300, 400 times, and seeing how well the model responds to these different things. So if you're doing it 200, 340 times and you want to do this in manual, this is where you definitely need LLM as a judge to help you to evaluate some of these things. And then you only look where you see the model produces fail, or let's say it's a failed, it's bad score on certain things, and then you drill down to those areas as well. So everything, again, I put this on my article, like everything starts with an evaluation set. Where's your request? What's the expected response? And then what's the expected facts, right? So the LM acts as a grader. So here's an example. I didn't want Databricks, but I won't get into this one, but it just shows you how you can sort of make an evaluations, how this sort of looks like when you do experimentations, how certain companies already have UIs, and sort of, let me zoom in here if I can, that do something called traces, where you can ask questions, right? And then you can see overall scoring based off LM as a judge of relevance, safety, if it's concise, professional, rejected, which ones passed, which one did not pass. And then this is what people are doing today in terms of what's and how you evaluate these models. So again, you need this traceability. You need to have these rubrics in place. You need to develop these prompts to show whoever you're working with is saying, hey, we ran this over 300 times and it was safe every single time. It was relevant and it was professional and it was as accurate and grounded. So this is why we're deciding to proceed with the LLM, because if you're not doing 300, 500 versions and you're putting this in production and it's public facing, that's even worse, right? Because public facing could be thousands of users using your chatbot, or it could be millions of users determining what's going on over a period of time. And if you only look at 20, 30 use cases manually, that's not enough to say your model is successful. So again, when you do your evaluations, you can evaluate jailbreaking, you can evaluate sentiment, you can evaluate toxicities, you can evaluate in terms of critical informations. You can put all those as criterias and develop that into your evaluation spreadsheet in order to make sure you hit. So again, the major part I would say is when you make agents or LLMs or chatbots, there's two things that would make or break a product. Is one, data. So what data is going into your LLM, what data is it pulling, what information, and then two, your UAT testing. So I would say those are the two biggest things that people don't think about when they want to build chatbots or they want to build AI agents. The AI agent building is fun. That's the fun part, and that's the easy part. But having the right data sets and also doing the UAT testing, that's really where the difference between something that's production grade versus not is real from there. So that's it. So that's a little sneak peek of of studies classes. If you want to sleep in a little bit, you can go ahead. But that's definitely what we'll be talking about on Saturday. I think on Saturday I'll talk a little bit. I'll be going through a live Google Colab document and walking through the steps. We might be using we might be using a company called Aries AI. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of them before. There's a lot of these LLM companies that have come out and sort of want to be the top in their areas. But Aries, I've had conversations with them, and they give a really good. When I was doing ML models, they would they would be the ones like, okay, how do you capture model drifting? How would you capture precisions? How do you capture this? Blah blah blah. Sorry, Shanti, you have a question?
Yeah. So I didn't want to cut you off. That's why I've been waiting.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So last week, as I was asking about Jira MCP, right? I was able to find one hosted by Atlassian itself.
Oh, awesome.
So do you think that would cost any extra money than using, calling their MCP and fetching the details?
So if you have access to it, and you have your API keys that connect to it. There's no cost to use an API of a company. There's no
Oh,
cost on that.
oh,
The only thing you need to think about is which LLM you're using to have a conversation in terms of the MCP. So if you have an LLM like Google Studio and you're using the free account, then you're fine. But if you're going to start using an API key that might to have like a decent production wise grade, that's where the only thing that will cost you. And the only thing with MCPs does take up a lot of context, and they will eat some of your tokens. But if you're using GCP just to test a couple of questions from there using Google Studio, you should be fine to be able to use that. Just know sometimes it might rate limit you, saying, "Oh, so the API is not working right now," or
yeah,
something.
and sometimes the rate limiting. I tried from VS Code.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw that rate limiting sometimes, not every time.
So again, if you want to test it out, use that. And if it's really something that really works and that's great, then find a way. If you're using this for your company, it's fine. They might have already an API key for an LLM they're using on their Azure environment or AWS environment, wherever environment they may be on,
Uh-huh.
and figure out how you can use that and leverage that in.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
Anyways, so that's awesome. That's great that you found one that's directly from Atlas.
Actually, Luis, I have some questions too. I can
Yeah.
wait. Okay. So let's say I want to write an MCP server, but I want that server to be automatically available. Let's say someone is using from ChatGPT or someone is using Claude or Perplexity. Like if they type the context, then I want the LLM to choose my MCP server. Is that possible?
So yeah, so this is what we were doing yesterday. So, for example, you write your own MCP server and you want other individuals to use it. You would then publish it on if it's something that's free, like if it doesn't cost any money to use it or anything like that, you register it and then you publish it and you pass that published link to any other individual to use your MCP server from that way. So that's how
But
you would, yeah.
how about I don't want to give anything to them? In the sense, can LLMs automatically detect that, okay, oh, this MCP does this. Let me ask that. Is that possible?
So what do you mean by that? Like, can you give
Oh,
me an example?
yeah, I will tell you. For example, let's say we provide services, like my company name is ABC Solutions, right? And then that has some questions and answers for whatever relevant based on. So then can someone say, hey, ChatGPT, ask ABC Solutions for these questions and give me answers. Then it has to invoke my MCP. That way, even to build chatbots and all, I don't need to write anything custom. The LLMs will automatically empower to reach my server and then respond based on the context they provide.
Exactly. Yep. So a lot of people are now switching off of doing RAGs to do MCP servers. So yeah, that's definitely one way you can do it.
So is that possible? For example, I have multi vendors, let's say multiple clients, and then I will have my company name. So then they will ask in ChatGPT, use this company's MCP, and then start. They can ask, they can reach to my database.
Well, you don't have to you don't have to say use my company MPC. You just like give me information about this company, and then what I'll do is in your prompting that you would say if anyone would say about your company, use this MCP, right? So you don't have to explicitly say it every time. You can have it in your prompt engineering. So the model would say, okay, what tools do I have available? Oh, I have ABC's company's MCP available. I'll pull the information from there. So yeah, you can.
But here, in the sense, I'm not giving anything to the client. The user of my chatbot could be anyone in the world. I don't give anything to them, but all they do is they open ChatGPT and start prompting there. So can all the LLMs reach our MCP server automatically based on certain keywords?
No, you have to configure it. So you need to configure MCP. So for example, if you open VS Code right now, and let's say even you have GitHub Copilot, and you say, get me information from ABC company, they won't be able to get it for you. Like you would have to go in, configure MCP configuration, and copy your MCP configuration notebook, put it in there, and then after that's configured, the LLM model is able to use that.
Oh, so then something has to be plugged in. So it cannot be like general availability kind of that can be done.
No, so it's just like right now, if I go on ChatGPT, I tell it to go pull information from my Gmail. It's not going to be able to pull information from my Gmail unless I give it direct access to do it, right? I had to configure it. Just like an MCP server, you have to configure it in these IDEs.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, good questions.
And actually, one more thing. So last week you mentioned about, you give some demo, and then we talked about LLM choosing needed MCPs automatically, right? But then also then we register the list of MCPs to LLM, and then it will choose from one of those, right? But it will not go publicly, and then so now no LLM can go even publicly or even more widely available MCPs, or still we have to configure.
You still have to configure it. So this is where, again, the reason why we have, for example, like ChatGPT right now. Let's see if I can pull up an example of this. Let's see. I can ask ChatGPT now if when is your training date? What is your training date? So we can stop and pull here that this LLM model only has knowledge up to June 2024. So GPT-5 was trained on that date.
Nice.
Now asked it, what day is it today? So how can it know that today's Thursday, October 2nd, if only the training date's only June 24th? A tool is enabled on the back end that pulls that information in.
I see.
So then I say, okay, well, connect me to the Salesforce platform at Apple. So let's see if I type that in. What's going to do, right? So right now it's going to use something to think longer. So it says, I understand, but I can't directly connect you. But here's the way you can do it. Go to the pub, say blah, 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 blah. So then I can say, you know what? I don't want this information. I want to use an MCP. So I can click on the search button on my GPT-5 and say, no, get me information about you connecting through MCP to the server. So now it's going to use that tool web to collect information and actually shows me the information from the web that's pulling up from. So if I want to connect an MCP server, this needs to be configured to enable MCP servers in here to connect to it, right? So these IDEs are sort of frameworks at the back end that are meant to use tools. So right now, OpenAI has tools called Deep Research, Agentic Work, connect your notes, cursor, things like that is in, choose different models or mails. But you can see here is not configured to use MCPs and their framework and IDE. Meanwhile, if I go to Claude, I can click on here and I can see a bunch of MCPs, one that we would like the Gemini Pro one, the Graham Weather Open API that we created. I can send iMessages out and connect to my computer, Google search, blah, blah, blah. You can add connectors, manage connectors. So Claude's IDE framework is actually meant to be used for MCP because we know that Claude invented MCP.
I see. Gotcha.
So that's the difference. You can't, so unless you give your client configurations, or you can build your own IDE framework that has MCPs built in, then that would be other solutions for that as well.
And then also last week you mentioned about like MCPs can do SQL querying. Now all you have to do is provide date, time range, users and all. I didn't quite get it. Actually, I have to leave early, but I will listen to the presentation. Could you tell me about that?
Yeah, let's see if I can have Claude develop something for us. Please create a flow in Canvas. I'm not sure if you guys have used Canvas before. How an MCP server can connect to LLM, and the MCP server is using SQL queries to get information from a database. Okay, well, I guess I can't connect my internet right now.
No, I think it looks like Claude is having some issue. Yeah,
Someone's hacking Claude right now.
I think so.
Okay, let's try GPT-5.
This morning we had issue with GPT, ChatGPT.
Actually, who's better at doing canvases is Gemini. So this is where I use every single time different types of
So you have
LLMs.
ChatGPT desktop agent.
Yeah. The MCP server would look like, or direct SQL queries to a database. Make this a chart, make this like a diagram. So what I found, there are two ones that make really good canvases is this, but okay, let's say create canvas from here. Canvas, make this HTML. So Canvas is a tool, just like this one's, where it will put your code in and visualize it for you. So you don't have to put this in other areas as well, and you can create diagrams and edit things right away.
Wow.
So right now it's going to go through like a basic version of this, right? And you can do iterations, but how this usually works is on your MCP server gateway, you would have pre-written SQL queries that leads to a command. So your client asks, I need to understand what clients, like how many clients paid their bills this week, right? So then your SQL request will hit your MCP server gateway, authorize it, and then here is the query validation. So there's two ways to do it. One, you can have an LLM sort of create your queries and through the MCP servers and have that query database to do it that way. Or two, you can have pre-written queries saying, this is how you select invoices. This is how you select the day of the week. This is how you select the month. So then the model in the gateway would say, well, I need to understand what week it is. I need to understand the invoices. I need to understand this, and pull those three things and combine them together, and it will create that validation for you and pull that from the SQL server. So this is sort of how that SQL validation is. Typically, before MCP servers, you would just have to create a talk to your data agent that just connects directly to your SQL query. An example of this is show how LangGraph does SQL query through nodes. So LangGraph before MCPs sort of solved this issue by creating sort of again that the orchestrator, where it passes off to another LLM. Then other LLM is all just knows how to write SQL queries that are related about your database, and then it will have it pull that information out and then give it back to the main orchestrator. Orchestrator will then read it, answer it, and give it back to you. So you don't have to use an MCP server to do this. You can also use LangGraph agents, which will then, here, example, this one, you can talk to the user, generates the LangGraph agent node will generate the SQL query. Node 2 will execute SQL query, get the information on success. If it's error, tries again, goes back, gets information, try again, and goes back together. So again, there's multiple ways how you can do data extraction in terms of an agentic workflow. And LangGraph agent is one if you're using something that's open source, but if you don't have something open source, you want to use AWS, Bedrock, something like that, you could also use MCP to do the same sort of flow that way as well.
Actually, one point I was missing is, so let's say we have a query and then it's like a templatized query, and then we are asking it to run it. Then what is the value add by the MCP server in the previous diagram you showed? I'm missing that key concept probably.
Let's go back to the MCP. So your question is, what is the value add of what?
The MCP here, let's say here we have the query, right? You said we give the query to MCP already. Like that we have the query and it's like a template. Now we want it to be run by replacing the template with actual values, and then query will be run. So now what is the benefit we are getting by using MCP rather than invoking directly to the SQL server?
Yes, so the difference with MCP server is it has context and keeps your context history. So let's say you pull this information from that database and gets information in, and then you come back with the second question, how does this compare to what we did a month ago?
I see.
So instead of now going in and creating a brand new, okay, I need to pull out, now I need to create 3-4 separate different queries, you can just go create a new query of what happened a month ago, and then compare that to what you already just pulled right now. So because now you have context and you can have validations, it's going to save you that time of invoking multiple calls and doing more of an analysis that way.
I see. So it provides context for us to query on multiple things. Gotcha.
Yes. And the only thing you have to be careful though, again, as well, people talk about is context history. So if you keep asking a million questions and it doesn't get cleared out, your MCP server will fail, because again, there is limitations of how much context the model can take as well. Great questions. Okay, we've got 5 minutes left, so I'll finish off with the Ruiz. Again, we'll be talking about this on Saturday. But if you want to take a quick look at this, it talks about how you can do tracing of an agent, different ways, how to check if it's consistent, how do you check if it's incorrect, how do you view the paths, how do you view the traces, and when you click on something like this, I guess this is like a demo version, but you can always look at the evaluations and see how well your evaluation template is in your guardrails. So again, the most important part, like I said before, is how are you keeping track of these? How are you looking at how your model is performing questions? How are you checking how well it's doing versus QA hallucinations? How well is your prompts? And if you were to change your prompt, how does that change evaluations from evaluation A to evaluation B? And is it getting the same consistent responses? And again, the most important is latency monitoring as well. So again, these are the most important parts after you go to production and before you go to production as well. So this is something that I'll be talking a little bit more on Saturday. Okay, cool.
And Luis, one more question is, let's say if I have to give like an MCP and agentic AI demo to someone, technical people, where do I start? What do you have any sample ground to make them feel good about it or to know more about it?
So you're saying, like, how can you present a quick demo of agentic AI?
The MCP and agentic AI, if I have to give demo to some, let's say execs or whoever, they are technical people. Any starting pointers to move?
To be honest, that's a hard question. It really depends on, again, if you're building something for your own company, you would have to show something that you could probably do one simple agentic flow and then walk through slides of how that backend works. That's like, there isn't like a thing online that says use this as agentic or something like that. There are demos for voices, there are demos for this, but you have to sign up, you have to pay for this one thing for the other. But I would say develop something yourself. I think that would provide more value, because again, you're in your own system.
Yep.
And go from there. But yeah, there really isn't a demo that way.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Yeah, that's a good idea. Develop and show that this really works.
Yeah, you just one. You don't have to be complicated. Just do one. Yeah.
Or if you want to build a MCP, maybe you can expose your APIs and then create a MCP and then show it to them, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually. Yeah, I think they would feel more connected. Yeah.
100% too. Yep.
Luis, on UAT testing, you said UAT testing on chatbots, right?
Yes.
In general, UAT is like flow, all those things. But in chatbot, what can we say in UAT like?
Yeah, so when you think of chatbots, think of personas, right? So let's say you have one person who's going to go to who wants to cancel a ticket or cancel a ride through your chatbot system. You have to think of that flow of user goes on to your chatbot, user asks this type of questions. What are the responses that your chatbot will come out with? Was the actions was it able to invoke the right APIs to cancel the ride, and was it able to provide the right response at the end? So you create these personas in terms of flows of how to cancel a car ride, how to get money back if overcharged. You create these personas, you create these flows. It's just like how these other ones, but again, it's about the actions. And you need to think of these LLMs as what's the main purpose of these LLMs, and what are the actions you want it to do, and then from there create your workflows from there, and then the evaluations of what information, what tools it needs to pull, etc. from there. So you need to think about that way as well in terms of UAT. So it's about what its main goal and purpose is, and what are the different ways you can create different personas of different tasks and deliveries that needs to be done.
Okay. Thank you, Luis.
Yep. Okay, I need to drop off a little bit 2 minutes early, but hopefully everyone found this informational, this little bit more informational today. I found it really great questions today. So thank you for joining today, and hopefully this was a big help.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Luis.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thanks for the session.
Great. Thanks.
Okay, and guys, enjoy your evening.
Thanks. Bye.
Yep.